This is Politics Tonight, everyone. Nigeria's economic picture just got a major update. Following a fresh rebasing exercise, the country's gross domestic product has surged to 372.8 trillion naira for 2024, a significant jump that redefines the scale of Africa's largest economy, reflecting significant adjustments in economic structure and output measurement. Now, this development has key implications for fiscal planning, investment strategy, and economic policy making. And for analysis of this latest development, Mokhtar Mohammed, stockbroker, CEO of Finance and Mokhtar, joins me on the program. Good evening to you, Mr. Mokhtar. Thanks a lot for joining us. Welcome to Politics Tonight.
Thank you for having me, Olajimoke. My pleasure.
Thank you very much. You know, the headline on most of the business dailies is Nigeria finally rebases GDP after 11 years. And I'd like you to allow me to start off by quoting some part of the statement by Statistician General of the Federation. He says, that's Adini Radiyem, he says, rebasing is conventionally done every 5 years, depending on resource availability and the technical capacity of the statistical office. And as we're all aware, economies are dynamic. They change continually with innovation and new technologies, which alter the production and consumption patterns of individuals, houses, firms, and governments. First, what's your analysis of this statement? What is the assessment of this exercise? And do these numbers released today rather represent the best estimates of Nigeria's national economic output?
Okay, I think I agree totally with what he said. You know, you have to do this every 5 years because of economy is like the life of a man is evolving. You talk about consumption, and if you look at the rebasing, it's based on a lot of industries that were not captured before now. You talk about modular refinery, you talk about the pension fund administrator, you talk about national health insurance, you talk about household that are employer of labor. These are the mining activities also. These were not captured in the previous data that was released by the during the rebasing, and also the digital economy. These are all huge sites in industry that have huge potential. So definitely, when you look at what I've just said, what I've mentioned, modular refinery, digital economy, national health insurance, you talk about pension fund administrator, and then you talk about household that have become one of the largest employer of labor, then definitely you want to agree with some of the estimates that they have given, because these new addition to the economic activities are huge. If you look at in terms of employment, in terms of value, in terms of productivity they bring to the economy.
And you know, today I have also heard economists to remind us that GDP rebasing is not a government reform or policy gimmick. According to them, it's a statistical recalibration for accurate measurement. NBS has added the business sample census, agriculture sample census, the Nigerian Living Standards Survey, and the revised Nigerian Labor Force Survey. Is this by far the most comprehensive of any rebasing exercise conducted by NBS?
Well, you can't say, because again, we are not comparing. Like I said, we will begin to compare that when we have the same of same. But when you talk about, like I'm talking about a life of a man, you don't compare life of a man 5 years ago and a life of a man 5 years after. There are a lot of differences that have come in. Then if you are trying to compare, you're trying to compare about the new things that have happened, where these new things really capture. And so for me, I think that is where we stand, where I stand as regards this rebasing. Like he said, it's not a political instrument for you to say, okay, rebasing, you've done it, all these things happened during when you came into power, or when your party or when your administration was in power. No, definitely not. But I think rebasing in itself is good for the economy. So comparing that with the previous rebasing, I don't think we should do that. And again, even if we have to do that, we have to do that based on what was there before and what is there now. And if you look at the Secretary General, what he said there is a lot of issues in terms of this rebasing, in terms of getting accurate data. So the world has evolved. Data is key when it comes to capturing. And when you look at the evolving data and getting data again in a society like ours, which means you have to go to the street. It's not easy to get digital data by going to different ministries. So you have to give it to them that they have really done a good work.
All right, so talking about the previous exercise, I would like to know, how does the new 372.8 trillion Naira GDP compare to the pre-rebased figures? Now, when the Nigerian economy was rebased in 2014, its GDP went from below $400 billion to over $500 billion. And the country then emerged as the biggest economy in Africa. This time, what sectors contributed most to this revised GDP estimate? Does this rebasing reflect real growth in the economy or just a statistical adjustment? Some have said the economy looks bigger after rebasing. Does that mean Nigerians are wealthier in real terms?
Well, when it comes to rebasing is not, like you said, it's just a statistical data. And most time rebasing is all about trying to capture areas that were not captured before. And you do this when you are doing that, you are trying to make sure that you get investors to look at different new areas in your economy that's evolved. So that's why you do rebasing to say, look, we have this new area in our economy that has evolved. We have the digital economy space. We have the modular refinery. We have a vibrant pension fund administrators. We have a vibrant social health insurance scheme. We have a vibrant mining sector. So what you do in terms of rebasing is to get people to come into your economy and invest in that economy and grow that economy. So that is where the prosperity will come in, because you are now telling investors, whether foreign direct investors, to come in and then invest in these sectors. They are new and they are productive. There's a good prospect there for them to also generate their own profit and also be able to grow their company. That's the main reason of rebasing.
Yeah.
Now, is rebasing all about putting food in the table? Like I said, it doesn't really put food in the table, but it can create jobs through these sectors. And so when those jobs comes, then it end up putting food in the table of the ordinary Nigeria. And you look at rebasing 5 years ago, when we did it, we became the largest economy in the world. I mean, the largest economy in Africa. But today, rebasing, after even the rebasing, we are still the fourth largest economy in Africa. So there's a difference. So you can see that other economies are not lacking behind this time. As we are evolving with new areas, they're also evolving more also new areas. So definitely, it's a difference between what happened 5 years ago and what has happened, 11 years ago and what is happening now. And I think why we are not able to maintain that space as the largest economy in Africa, because it took us another 11 years to do this rebasing. So definitely, rebasing it itself will not improve the life of the ordinary Nigerian when you talk about rebasing. But now rebasing has opened a new sector in the Nigerian economy. And when you have new investment in those sectors, it opens up those economies, then it will add to the life of ordinary Nigerians that will get jobs in some of these new sectors that have been opened, especially when you have foreigners coming to invest in these sectors.
And with this latest GDP figure, some have also said Nigeria's debt to GDP ratio will technically drop. I want to have your perspective on that. Also, does that actually mean we are in a better fiscal position? How might this, rebased GDP influence government borrowing and debt to GDP ratio? Will this affect how international financial institutions engage with Nigeria? Is it to our advantage that Nigeria may take advantage of this improved ratio to borrow more for priority projects?
Well, if you're in government, you'll be excited about it. So it's an easy way. That means you can borrow more. Okay. But again, GDP does not pay your debt. It's your revenue that pays your debt. So like I said, the only way why you now have a debt to GDP ratio that is you can borrow more is because international agencies will be looking at these new these areas in your economy that have been added to your economy, and they are looking at what they will bring to the table in terms of value, in terms of revenue to your economy. So they will definitely use that to calculate that, oh, you can now borrow more because you have new sector that by virtue of productivity in that sector, you'll be able to generate revenue to pay those debts. But if those sectors are not vibrant enough to generate revenue to pay those debts, definitely you are still you're picking yourself into more debt. So what I almost say is that the GDP itself will not pay your debt, but what's the areas of this when they are developed in terms of creating jobs, people pay taxes, new companies now come in there, you have employ a lot of Nigerians in those sectors, those Nigerians will not pay taxes, those companies also will not pay taxes, then you have foreign investors coming to invest in those companies, bringing in effects into the economy, help stabilize the economy. That is where you can say, okay, by the virtue of this, our growth to GDP, we have been able to, we now have more revenue by this sector, so we can borrow more and we'll be able to pay. But if it's just by, oh, we have this sector, you have not even developed it, you have not seen the revenue to meet up what you are borrowing, then you are digging more debt for yourself.
All right, Mr. Mokhtar, let me ask you this elementary question. And I mean, it's very important to some of us. How should investors, both local and foreign, interpret this new figure? Will this change Nigeria's global economic ranking or status within Africa?
Well, definitely it will. I mean, we are fourth now. I'm sure before now we're not fourth. Maybe we are among the first 7 or 8. So definitely we change our ranking. I've not looked at our global ranking, but definitely I think we'll still be among the 40 largest economy in the world. So definitely it will change our ranking. Like I said, it will also attract both local and foreign investors because you are looking at some of those space. If you look at the digital economic space, you know that that's a sector that Nigerians are really exploiting. You see the fintech companies, especially in the financial sector, how they have been able to penetrate into the rural areas. So that's a plus also. Then when you look at that GDP also, you look at the real estate sector as the largest contributor. And when you look at the real estate sector, you see that there's still a lot to be done because housing is still a challenge for most Nigerians. So that also could attract more investors into those spaces. And when you look at those real estate sector, you realize that it's largely played by Nigerians in the diaspora. And these are funds that can come in and stabilize our exchange rate and make our exchange rate not only more competitive, but also giving us the real value of our exchanges. So definitely, the whole idea is to give investors, both local and foreign, an idea of where you can invest in and the kind of profitability that will come from those investments, and also in terms of those that are already in that space, that there is room for more expansion. That's basically what the rebasing of the GDP normally does.
Right. Let's talk about implications, Mr. Mokhtar, because you have said GDP does not pay your debts. It is generating more revenue that pays your debts. So, I mean, with this, how does this affect national and state level budget planning or fiscal policy? Should Nigeria increase borrowing, which we've talked about after rebasing, or should we focus on improving revenue generation? What do you consider as the potential risk of expanding government borrowing based solely on improved debt ratios from rebasing?
Like I've said, rebasing itself will not put food on your table. Government borrowing, for me, I'm not against government borrowing. I've said it over and over. But again, what are we borrowing for? If you look at the borrowing that the president presented to the National Assembly of recent for approval, you see that those borrowing has to do tied to specific projects, which are okay for me. You are looking at rain in the southeast. You are looking at also payment of pension for pensioners, which has a way of motivating those that are serving to say, look, if we are out of service, our pensions will be paid, we'll be able to live a good life. So when you look at all that, fine, fantastic. But my challenge with borrowing is if you are borrowing for consumption and if you are just looking for ways to borrow, because like I keep saying, globally now we've gone beyond government borrowing. Government is now becoming a partner with the private sector in terms of build and operate PPP, public-private partnership. Government gives you the facility, you build, you operate, you earn revenue from there. Then from that revenue, you pay governors taxes. Sometimes you have tax holiday, but the workers that are working there are also paying taxes. So it helps in the long run. But borrowing for borrowing's sake, for me, is a problem because your GDP have expanded. Now you now think it's not high time to borrow. I don't think that is a right step to take. But again, like I said, if you are going to improve that sector, and by the improvement in that sector, you are going to generate revenue, then definitely, and you know the new tax law is all about expansion and generation of revenue. So by virtue of this sector, that means you have more people paying tax, and then you could also get more revenue. Then in terms of borrowing, then you'll be able to pay off those debts.
And for the purpose of clarity and better understanding, in what ways should governments adjust its fiscal and monetary policies after a GDP rebasing? Does the rebased GDP justify expanding the national budget, or should budget expansion be tied strictly to revenue growth? Please speak to that.
Budget expansion should be tied definitely to revenue growth. I mean, if you are creating more deficit in the budget, it doesn't really help you at all. So definitely budgets should be tied to more, budget expansion should be tied to revenue. What's the essence of coming up with a project when you don't have provision for cash cash backing to carry out those projects. That has been the bane of Nigerian problem in terms of budget implementation. So I don't think we should go through that route again because of the expansion that we have seen now. We are now doing estimated revenue. You see what estimated revenue have done for us. If you look at presently budget, government will be struggling to implement the current budget, even if two budgets are running at the same time. Price of crude is below the government estimate. Exchange rate is still below the government estimate. So those are huge challenge. Production of crude oil is still below government estimate. Revenue from non-oil sector is huge, but value in terms of cash that it brings to the table is still small compared to what you have in the oil and gas sector. And the oil and gas sector is still suffering from issues that have to do with oil theft and others. So I don't think we should look at that. We should always look at debt to revenue. For me, I think that's the best way to run your economy rather than running debt to GDP.
So, I mean, let's be clear. How should this new GDP figure influence government policies going forward, especially in budgeting, taxation, or investment planning? Are you bothered, or is there a risk that the rebasing could create this false sense of progress and perhaps slow down needed reforms? Does that bother you?
It all depends. I don't think it can slow down needed reforms. Rather, it should enhance reforms. It depends on how government is looking at it. Like I said, when you talk about, I've talked about the sectors that are really helped in this rebasing. You're looking at the real estate sector. So you are looking at that is still a challenge. So if there being a challenge and it's still added more to the GDP than the oil and gas sector, what it means is that government should create more policy that encourage growth in the real estate sector. And also that will create housing for Nigerians. And also that will create jobs for the unskilled and the skilled Nigeria. And also that also we create a very strong base to begin to grow that sector in terms of policy growth. Then you look at sectors that are new. What can you do to those sectors to enhance productivity and so that they can add more to the GDP? All these are strategic plans that government need to do. So definitely GDP, like I say, it's like a roadmap. It's like a roadmap towards setting up a standard of what you want to achieve, which area you really need to look at, which area is suffering that can create more growth. Now, if you look at the new areas that were discovered, you look at mining, and you realize that in terms of mining, we've not really been able to capture it really, because again, illegal mining is thriving more rather than the real mining. So we need to look at how can we curb illegal mining so that mining itself can add more to the economy, can also create jobs for the economy. Those are things that government will look. You look at modular refinery. How many modular refineries do we really have? And also in that GDP data, they capture illegal modular refinery. How can we deal with this illegal modular refinery in getting them to become legal modular refinery? All these are things, these are what the GDP is all about. Look at sectors that can really drive your economy. What is stopping them from driving the economy? Sectors that are driving the economy, how can we improve them to do better? That is all what rebasing should all be about, not about politicking to say, okay, by virtue of this rebasing, I've grown the economy. But no, I think it's all about key for planning. So it gives a lot of work to the Minister for National Planning and his team.
All right. But what should everyday Nigerians take away from this announcement?
What every Nigerian take away from this announcement is that your economy is still buoyant, your economy is still attractive. There's still more opportunity for your economy, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You look at the digital economic space, it tells you that there's still more to be done, especially for the Nigerian youth, which have done so well in the digital economic space. You look at the modular refineries also, you as an oil marketer, as an oil producing nation, that means there's a lot of work to be done in that sector. You look at the pension fund administrator, how can we improve about that? You look at the national health insurance scheme, do we get more health insurance? Do we license more health insurance agency or to play up in this space also? These are part of what Nigerians should be looking at. Again, if you look at all these places, they are still open for expansion. The registration is not restricted. So what other Nigerians should be looking as a business, as a Nigeria, is to look what value can I add in those sectors? Can I create something that is better than what they have now? Can I come up with a company? So it's just, like I said, it gives you more opportunity to say, oh, there's a lot that still need to happen in our economy. I can still take advantage of it rather than just allowing foreigners to just come in and take advantage of it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mukhtar. That's about it that we can, have for this evening. Thank you so much. Mukhtar Mohammed is a stockbroker, CEO of Finance with Mukhtar. Thank you so much for your analysis and perspective on the program. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. Now let's